disorder which can present, patient can present without any symptoms normally, and sometimes patient is present with very variety of symptoms. In ICU patients usually, hypertension usually coincides with other primary diseases. So we have a great difficulty in distinguishing between the clinical features of hyponatremia, and we can't distinguish the symptoms of hyponatremia alone or the primary disease associated with it. So we face problems in distinguishing hyponatremia, and also there are many difficulties in treating hyponatremia. So today we are going to discuss about two cases where we have difficulties in treating these patients. So first case will be discussed by Dr. Natasha. In that patient, we have seen hyponatremia. Patient has primary disease of anemia. Anemia is also pneumonia. Patient is having pneumonia and associated with anemia, and we incidentally found hyponatremia. Patient will never come to hospital with hyponatremia alone. Patient will definitely come with other disease, other comorbid disease. We'll admit the patient just because of the primary disease. Incidentally, they'll find this electrolyte disorder, and we'll look for the cause of hyponatremia and then treat it. So now today Natasha will be going to discuss about this patient who presented with pneumonia, and then Satish will present one more case who presented with fissures, and replacing the new case of PSP.
Patient was apparently asymptomatic 10 days back. Then he developed dyspnea, which was of grade 2 to grade 3, which was an exertion. And there were no other complaints of palpitations, chest pain, orthopnea, and PND. He had complaints of cough with sputum. Sputum was whitish in color, non-foul smelling, and it was scanty in amount since past 2 days. And he was also complaining of sleep disturbances. Since past 10 days, he's been having disturbed sleep. There was no orthopnea PND, and there was no history. He had similar complaints approximately a year back, for which he went to a nearby RMP and he started using multivitamins, which were prescribed by the RMP. There was no history of palpitations, pedal edema, burning situation, weight loss, night sweats, or fever. There is a known case of diabetes and hypertension. And for diabetes, he is using tenofovir 20 mg and glimepiride and metformin. And for hypertension, he has been using telmisartan with metoprolol 40 mg and 25 mg. He is a strict vegetarian and duration since past 15 years.
That's important.
Coming to his personal history, he is a strict vegetarian and occasionally non-vegetarian. Like he consumes non-veg once in a month or once in every 2 months. He's not a smoker and is not an alcoholic. On general examination, patient is conscious, coherent, and cooperative. He was moderately built and nourished. Pallor is present, and there was no epidermis, clubbing, cyanosis, generalized edema, pulmonary. Coming to the respiratory system examination, he had fine crepitations in right intrascapular. There were no visible scars or sinuses, and apex beam was also seen in left fifth intercostal space. And coming
left fifth intercostal is a huge area.
In the mid-clavicular line.
It was exactly on the mid-clavicular.
Palpation, there was decreased movement of chest on right side.
Right side is a huge area.
Right
it has upper lobe, middle lobe, lower lobe.
Right lower zone, sir. Intrascapular areas.
Right infrascapular area. But right infrascapular area alone is not the lower lobe.
And
infraaxillary area. What about mammary, intramammary area? That is not part of the lower lobe. So what is part of the middle lobe?
Intrascapular area and intraaxillary area. And On auscultation, there was crepitations were present in the infrascapular region, sir, on right side. And coming to the serious examination, there was a pansystolic murmur. Both heart and the pansystolic murmur was present
How do you know it was pansystolic?
because it was starting from, we could hear it all throughout the cardiac cycle, sir.
What was the S1 like? What was the S2 like?
Could not appreciate S1 and S2 properly because of the.
So S2 was also not heard. Because in a pansystolic murmur, will you be not hearing the S2?
We'll be hearing the S2.
Yes. What about the S1? Okay, can you see what the intern has seen from here? What is the turbulence of the blood? Huh? Increased turbulence, blood is flowing, hyperdynamic circulation, anemia. Anemia is the commonest cause of functional murmur. So why does the systolic murmur happen in anemia? It's not pansystolic actually, but it's fine. I mean, one may not hear the S1 there. It's slightly higher up. The S1 is anyway supposed to be softer in that area. So what is the commonest cause of this murmur there? I mean, in anemia, why does the murmur happen? Because of the hyperdynamic circulation, then you will know the pulmonary infundibulum is there. And that's a very, very suddenly big area. From a right ventricle, it goes into a bigger space. And then it suddenly becomes narrow to the pulmonary artery. So because of, as such, the location and the space there, and when you have a large amount of blood flow with turbulence, it will cause more turbulence. And what you are hearing is the turbulence. It's just the turbulence, and that when there is more blood flow, more hyperdynamic circulation will be happening. And now that the hyperdynamic circulation has come down, now the murmur has disappeared because the anemia has improved, possibly. So,
Provisional diagnosis of anemia under evaluation could be nutritional. And second thing was he was having right lower zone pneumonia. So
can you see the pneumonia? That is the right lower zone. But where is the pneumonia?
clinically we could.
Clinically, we had some trepidation in the intrascapular area. So it's a clinical pneumonia, not a radiological pneumonia. So how common it is to get a pneumonia which is only clinical but not radiological? I'm just raising the questions. These are important things. Although it may not be directly related to your theme, the hyponatremia, diagnostic uncertainty. This is again slightly related because you are diagnosing a hyponatremia as the result of pneumonia. That's why you are focusing on the pneumonia. But then anybody in the audience can question you, how common is it to have a pneumonia which is just clinical but not radiological? So some review of literature is required there.
It was 5.7 and total leukocyte count was 14,800, which again added to our route of consolidation given as.
Okay, fine. So he was having some leukocytosis which was giving a little bit of some more weightage on your hypothesis of pneumonia. But again, the question remains as to how common is it to have clinical pneumonia but non-radiological?
Anemia, only one cell line is reduced.
Yeah.
And we also looked for reticulocyte count, which was 2%, and targeted reticulocyte index was 0.6%, which is again suggestive of hyperproliferation of bone marrow.
So some problem with the bone marrow. Yeah, obviously the bone marrow is not producing enough.
So both macrocytes and microcytes.
Where are macrocytes? Where are microcytes? See, you can see them. See in the 6 o'clock. That is 5 o'clock.
These are microcytes. So
Microcytes.
the larger hollow ones are.
I know. The larger hollow ones would be normal RBCs. The smaller ones. Can you see some more small? See, one is just at 6 o'clock. That one. Yeah. And something below that. Below that. Below, that one.
So it
That's the ball, see, Nadaka?
yes, sir.
That's the hypermeasure leukocyte. So this is a very classical picture of poly without any other further investigation, isn't it? So Natasha, you have to tell that. See, this is such a nice.
On 25th, it came down to 124.
Okay.
And potassium was 3.8 and chloride was 90.
So potassium is normal, but sodium just came down to 124 within a day. From 131 to 124. And then the second day it was 124 again. Isn't it? And then, I mean the third day that is. And then on the fourth day, suddenly you went to 100.
110.
110. Can you imagine? So what did somebody do on 26th?
Oral, we asked him to reduce the fluid intake and take more of salts. And once his sodium dropped to 110 again, we had to start IV corrections.
No, that's okay. I mean, that's the treatment part of it. So initially the treatment was just take more salt,
And less water.
less water. So you are taking more salt, less water did not help him. It further went down to 110. So why? What was happening here? So once that, can you tell me? So why did it happen? Because Natasha had asked him to stop drinking.
Not completely stopped.
Yeah,
I asked him to
whatever.
reduce.
So he took 900 ml of water, and that's the reason, or we do not know, because previous day he was taking just 200 more, and he was past 1 liter. Here he is taking 100 less, or maybe 200 less.
We should think whether the pneumonia, when did it develop, whether it is nosocomial infection, the hospital-acquired pneumonia, or before it occurred.
As per Natasha's presentation, it seems to be a community acquired, and it's a clinical pneumonia, not radiology. So community acquired.
We should look into the literature and find how many days we get hypernatremia after developing pneumonia.
Okay, yeah, we should see that. So you have to prepare your discussion that way.
Is there any spike? Will there be any spike after 3 to 4 days of developing pneumonia? Daily spike?
Yeah, has this kind of presentation with SIDS pneumonia ever been described by anybody else in the results?
Starting on 2% NaCl, the rate of correction we initially started was 15.
So the ideal time to have send the urine sodium would have been at 110. Okay, before starting the labor.
So because he became drowsy,
So we panicked. We could not send the urine which was anyway there in the colleagues.
was a minute of 4 days because he was around.
So we did not want to wait for him to urinate. But what we could have done is, if we didn't have colleagues, we could have just passed a red rubber catheter or anything. What do you call those? Simple 60 rupees catheters. Just pass it once, one time urinary catheter. Pass it, drain the urine, whatever, some urine will definitely come out.